You think you know what survival really means? Some people should have definitely died. They fell from the sky into dense jungle. They drifted in the open ocean with sharks. They were trapped beneath the ice and still kept moving. And the very next moment was supposed to be the end. But history said, not yet. If survival had laws, these people broke them in public. Because what you're about to hear isn't toughness. It's a series of moments where the universe clearly decided the ending, and the humans refused to read it. 4 escapes. 4 situations where the correct outcome was death. And somehow, history recorded a different result. Story 1. The ship that got crushed and still didn't win. Antarctica. The Weddell Sea. Ernest Shackleton's ship, Endurance, pushes into white emptiness like a needle into cotton, until the cotton turns into a fist. The ice doesn't hit the ship, it arrests it, a slow, humiliating capture. Days pass, then weeks. The pack ice grips the hull so tightly the wood begins to complain. Not with one dramatic crack, but with constant groans, like a creature trying to breathe under a weight it can't move. The men can't sail, they can't row, they can't wait it out. Because Antarctica doesn't have later, it has eventually. By October 1915, Shackleton understands the truth. The Endurance is not a ship anymore. It's a coffin being built in real time. Then the sound changes. Wood snaps like bones. The Endurance tilts, buckles, and begins to break apart. Shackleton orders the crew off the ship. Not panicking, not screaming, just a clean command that tries to pretend this is normal. It isn't. 28 men step onto the ice with lifeboats, supplies, and one impossible plan: walk across a floating world. Think about what that means. Their ground is not land. It's a moving plate that can split without warning. Under it is black water that will kill you in minutes. Above it is air that bites your lungs when you breathe. They drag boats across ridges of ice like hauling their own future in ropes. They camp on an ice floe like it's a campsite and not a drifting grave. Months pass. Food becomes a math problem. Warmth becomes a fantasy. Morale becomes something Shackleton has to manufacture like oxygen. And then April 1916 arrives and says, enough pretending. The ice beneath them breaks. Their platform fractures. The floe they've lived on becomes shards. Suddenly, it's not, are we stuck? It's, can we row in water that is basically knives? They launch the lifeboats into freezing seas and fight their way to Elephant Island. They make land, but it's not rescue. It's a rock at the end of the earth, uninhabited, storm-lashed, and invisible to normal shipping routes. This is where most stories would end. Stranded men, no one coming, credits roll. Shackleton looks at the horizon and chooses insanity instead. He points at one small lifeboat, James Caird, about 22 feet long, and decides it will cross the Southern Ocean to South Georgia, more than 1,000 kilometers away. 6 men climb into that wooden bowl. They aren't sailing across water. They're sailing into weather. The Southern Ocean doesn't do waves. It does walls. The boat rises and drops like it's being toyed with. Cold coats everything. Salt freezes in their clothes. Ice forms on the boat. They chip it away because if the boat gets too heavy, it sinks. They can't sleep properly. If you sleep, you drift. If you drift, you die. So they take turns collapsing for minutes at a time, waking to the slap of water and the pain of cold that never stops. The sea is everywhere. They're surrounded by water they cannot drink. Their tongues crack. Their lips split. Their bodies scream for a resource that sits inches away, laughing. And still, they keep going. After 2 weeks that feel like a long punishment, they see land, South Georgia. But it's the wrong side. No whaling stations, no easy path, just cliffs and glaciers. So Shackleton does the next impossible thing. He and 2 men cross the mountains of South Georgia with no proper gear, no map that matters, and no margin for error. They climb and stumble through snowfields and ridges, pushing forward because stopping means freezing into history. When they reach the whaling station, the workers stare, because these men don't look like survivors. They look like something the ice spit out. Then comes the part that proves Shackleton wasn't gambling for drama. He was gambling for people. He goes back.
After several attempts blocked by sea ice, Shackleton returns to Elephant Island in August 1916 and rescues every man left behind. Every single one. Antarctica tried for almost 2 years to erase them. It failed. Story 2. The ship that vanished in minutes, and the ocean that took 4 days to decide. July 30th, 1945. The Pacific Ocean. The USS Indianapolis is moving through open water when torpedoes strike. This is not a slow sinking, it's a sudden collapse. Within about 12 minutes, the ship is gone. One moment it's steel and engines and the illusion of safety. The next moment it's oil, flames, screaming, and then water swallowing the sound. Hundreds die fast. Around 890 men end up in the sea. At first, survival feels like winning. You didn't go down with the ship.
You can breathe, you can float. Then time passes, and you realize nobody is coming. Because of communication failures and missed assumptions, the ship is not reported missing when it should have been. There is no immediate search, no rescue convoy steaming toward them. So the ocean becomes a slow execution. Day 1. Shock, burns, injury, oil slicks that turn skin into raw pain. Night 1. Darkness and screaming that slowly reduces as people tire. Day 2. Thirst begins to speak. Sunlight becomes a weapon. The heat presses down like a hand. Day 3. Thirst becomes a scream. Men begin making choices that aren't choices. Drinking seawater, hallucinating, believing things that aren't there because reality is too cruel to stare at. Day 4. The mind fractures. Groups drift apart. Some cling to each other. Some drift alone, quiet. And yes, sharks appear. Not movie monsters. Real shapes in water that don't care about your rank or your story. Attacks happen. But sharks aren't the only predator here. Dehydration kills. Heat kills. Panic kills. Seawater madness kills. The real horror is that death doesn't come like a punch. It comes like exhaustion. Then, by near accident, they are spotted from the air on August 2nd. Rescue finally arrives, but it's not a victory parade. It's triage in the middle of an ocean cemetery. Only 316 are pulled out alive. Imagine floating for days and surviving the part that wasn't supposed to have survivors. Not because you beat the ocean, but because your body stayed stubborn 1 hour longer than the schedule. Story 3. The girl who fell from the sky and walked out of the Amazon. December 24th, 1971. Peru. A commercial plane flies into a storm and lightning hits. The aircraft breaks apart in midair. 17-year-old Julianne Kepka is strapped to her seat when she is ripped out of the sky and thrown downward into rainforest. You read that right. A fall that should end in a crater ends in green. She wakes up on the ground, alive, injured, and alone. Concussion, cuts, a broken collarbone, a damaged knee, pain everywhere. And the rainforest is not quiet about what it wants. Heat wraps around her like wet cloth. Insects find her wounds like they were invited. She calls out. No answer. She listens. The forest answers with 1,000 sounds that don't mean help. This is where most people die. Because the Amazon doesn't just kill you. It confuses you until you make a mistake. You chase a sound and get lost. You drink bad water and get sick. You sit still and infection grows. You walk the wrong way and exhaust yourself into the ground. Juliana has one advantage that matters: knowledge. Her parents had told her something simple that becomes a lifeline. Follow water downstream. Rivers lead to humans. So she starts moving. Not hero walking, not cinematic running. A limping, stubborn, painful forward motion. She walks in and alongside streams, letting the current guide her like a crude compass. She endures nights where the darkness feels alive. She endures days where the sun turns the air into boiling breath. Her wounds become a problem. Maggots appear in one wound, and that sounds horrific, but in nature, maggots can also clean dead tissue. Survival is ugly like that. She keeps going anyway. 11 days. 11 times the night arrives and asks, "So, is this the end?" 11 times she answers, not yet. Then she finds a small camp used by lumber workers, a shack, supplies, the first sign that humans exist in this endless green. When the workers return, they don't see a normal scene. They see a teenager stepping out of the rainforest like the forest lost a bet. She survives. And the reason isn't magic. It's that one thin thread, follow the river, held long enough to become a path out. Story 4. The canyon that pinned a man, and the decision that hurt to even imagine. April 26, 2003, Utah, Blue John Canyon. Aaron Ralston is hiking alone when a boulder shifts and traps his right arm against the canyon wall. No phone signal, no one nearby. Worse, he didn't tell anyone exactly where he was going, so the canyon becomes a sealed room. At first, you try normal solutions. You pull, you twist, you leverage, you chip. Nothing. Hours pass, then a day, then another. Water becomes rationed in tiny sips. Food becomes an afterthought because thirst is louder. The sun moves across the slot canyon like a clock you can't stop watching. Night comes cold and silent, and your trapped arm becomes a reminder. The rock is not moving. Ralston tries everything. He invents hope, then watches it fail. And then the truth arrives, clean and merciless. Nobody is coming, in time. So he does the one thing the brain rejects as impossible. He chooses pain over death. He breaks his trapped bones using leverage and force. Then, with a dull pocket knife, he amputates his arm. This story is not about gore. It's about the moment a person decides, I will not die here. He escapes the canyon, rappels down a cliff, and hikes out, bleeding, exhausted, but moving. Eventually, he meets other hikers who help him reach rescue. And that's the twist. The hardest part wasn't the cut. It was the decision. Because survival isn't always about fighting nature. Sometimes it's about fighting your own instinct to freeze. So what do these 4 escapes have in common? Not strength, not luck, not being built different. They share a refusal so intense it looks like madness. A refusal to accept the ending the world handed them. A ship, crushed by ice, that still didn't claim its men. An ocean that turned 4 days into a lifetime and still didn't finish the job. A rainforest that swallowed a girl from the sky and somehow couldn't keep her. A canyon that pinned a man and learned the human body can rewrite the rules when the alternative is a grave. These are the most unhinged survival escapes in history because no one should have lived. And yet, they did.